So, welcome to this edition of Seen and Solved. I'm Tim Pennington, your host, and I'm joined by Scott Papst from Hubbard-Hall to talk about something that many finishers are experiencing: the decline in supplier support and what that means in a shrinking and consolidating market. And we'll be back to talk to him in just a moment.
You're listening to the Seen and Solved podcast, brought to you by Hubbard-Hall. Better results, less chemistry.
Scott, thanks for joining us today to talk about this subject, which it doesn't really have anything to do about coating parts or finishing parts, but it has a lot to do with shop operations, which is extremely important for a lot of shop owners. And we're talking about consolidation of suppliers and the support that a lot of these shops are getting. So let's talk about that. Why do you think a lot of support is really just not happening, or really ending, or falling off the cliff?
Well, Tim, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. Well, truth is there's been a lot of, consolidation in the market, and the customers are feeling that. They're seeing that, their long-term supplier is now, a much larger corporation in many cases. But I think, what I'd like to talk about, it's more than just consolidation. It isn't just that. There's other dynamics that are contributing. And I think it's a great opportunity for the customers to understand and have good discussions with their suppliers, where, historically speaking, service was just part of the product that we were selling. It went with the volume. But, over the last decade especially, and here at Hubbard-Hall, we're really committed to helping our customers use less chemistry. So as we see not only consolidation of the suppliers, we're seeing consolidation of the job shops. There's a lot of less shops out there today. And the shops that are disappearing were the ones that couldn't adapt to change, whether it was regulatory and such. So these larger shops are much more efficient with their chemistry usage. So it becomes where the service, which was paid for by the volume, now volume is not increasing. So there is that natural pullback. And I think it's an opportunity to have a fresh start and a good discussion with your supplier how to best serve the customer.
Yeah, it's funny, the saying, you don't miss something till it's gone. And I wonder if a lot of shops even really realize the amount of customer service they were getting until they, or you think they were even noticing they were getting until maybe it was pulled back a little bit.
Exactly. And until it's pulled back, people really didn't know. And then as a supplier, we always didn't do a good job of really quantifying that for the customer. It was just a given. When a customer needed something, you were there. But in recent years, usually at the end of the year, I like to sit down with our customers and we do this presentation where we show how often we've been at the shop, how many hours we've been there. And there's a lot of surprise to that. But then it also allows us into that conversation. Well, your volumes are down. It's hard to keep doing this for free. What do you actually need? So it gives us a chance to kind of had this unbundling conversation, because some accounts didn't need much service, but they were paying it in their price. So now we could build a system or a tiered approach, be more flexible. So I think it's a win for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah, it's that old saying, kind of like when you hire a plumber, you're not really paying for that hour. You're paying for his 22 years of experience of how to fix that problem, that he's going to do it in an hour. That's the experience you're getting with that of having somebody in customer service. But so let's talk about Hubbard-Hall for a bit. How are you all doing things a little differently? Adapting to the changing demands that a lot of shops may be asking for. How are you all adapting to that?
Consolidation, they see people pulling back. But we're actually doing just the opposite. While others are pulling back, we're investing, but it may look different to the customer in that, currently, and we're not cutting back, 32% of Hubbard-Hall's employees are either tech service or sales. And we don't see that, changing. But how we interact with our customers, this is where we're investing in. So it could be different, where they may have had a tech person or a salesperson coming in weekly. Well, we're challenging that, not to give you less, but our customers are all saying, we want you to be more responsive, faster. Well, now we're looking at, digital tools. We're looking at working on a Hubbard-Hall AI knowledge base that would be available 24/7, and you'll get, and frankly, the best answer, more consistent answers, where depending upon very often who you spoke to at Hubbard-Hall, you may have gotten 3 good answers, but they were different and it left you confused. Well, now we'll be more consistent in our reply and quicker. We're not eliminating the human, but you'd get immediate results based on your history, and the people are still there if you need a deeper dive.
Getting it fast and getting it correct is very, very important when it comes to getting information. So tell me a little bit about more about remote monitoring.
So there's another area, where a lot of the times we're going into places because their processes get out of control. So, even right now, remote monitoring's been around for many years. Many companies do it, but a lot of companies think it's something that's too expensive for them. So we're just right now optimizing. We have our whole pilot line here where we're putting remote monitoring with different sensors to, see what works best for our customers. But we're looking at a spend as little as $4,000 where you have a controller. You could be monitoring 4 different tanks, and you at least have the visibility in-house of what's going on to, catch something before a problem. And if you're looking at a $4,000 investment and thinking it's costly, talking to some job shops, one bad rack of parts. I had one shop recently tell me that's $3,800 waste right there.
Yeah, I was going to say, and not just have a bad rack. You could lose a customer if you're not really paying attention to something. So it's almost like you all are kind of watching it and can do an analysis pretty quickly for them if it need to be.
You start with the internal monitoring, but then the ability to add a little more cost and have remote monitoring within your corporation, or have your vendors seeing it, getting alerts, and being able to adapt sooner. It's definitely a step in the right direction and improving your overall experience and reducing your cost.
Yeah, like I said, I know some of these shops. They've told me some of their customers are worth to them $500,000 to $600,000 a year. So it seems like that's not out of the realm of them to have that kind of built in with that. So very interesting. So you've been around the industry for a long time. What is your take on how consolidation in the supplier area is really affecting the supplier landscape? What's your take on that?
Yeah, definitely. They're feeling the pain. The large, suppliers having this consolidation, gives them some efficiencies, economy of scale that they could drive. But I think what the customer's feeling is that disconnect. They're losing that quick response. It may be a boardroom making decisions in Europe versus here locally, where when you just need something tweaked or changed. That's where here at Hubbard-Hall, it's very quick for us to make these changes. We don't have a board. We're privately held, and we make decisions quickly.
It's funny. I get some feedback from some shops who say, as compared to 10 years ago, even 20 years ago, when you had a lot more suppliers on the landscape, that they feel like sometimes they're kind of getting pinched to, you're going to be limited to who you can go out and get your supplies from. So, that kind of constrains them. But what do you think that finishers should be thinking about with their suppliers right now? What have you seen a kind of a mind shift in that at all?
Well, it's starting as they feel these questions, as we started the conversation, where this service was always kind of given, wasn't really looked at, but it came with just the purchase of the chemistry. We're committed to helping our customers use less chemistry. So we got to, really be looked at as partners, where we're getting beyond a tank to give the best, value. Because really, all my competitors, Hubbard-Hall, we all have great products in most cases, or we wouldn't be in business. But it's that ability to really take the time, learn what you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve, that's beyond just the product. It really will make the companies profitable. And if we have these conversations, we could unbundle or bundle the services transparently as you need, so everyone thinks they're getting a fair shake and everyone understands clearly what each other's expectations are. So I had this one customer that was sending us lots of samples, and it was becoming very costly for us, where, I have people, Scott, we need to be charging. And so, okay, before I'm going to charge, let me go find out what's going on and why we're doing what we're doing. So the only reason they were sending us samples is because they wrote it to themselves in their own ISO program that they need to send essentially a weekly sample. And we were doing it for years and never was there anything out of spec. It was all this. And then realized, being that the analysis we're doing, they got away from sending weekly to we're sending a monthly box of the weekly samples. Well, even if we found out there was something wrong now, the only one we really needed to check was the most recent one at best. So I shared this with the management team. Again, why are we doing this? It opened their eyes, and when I was telling their management, obviously there's cost. So I can keep doing it, but I will have to charge. And why you want it? It's not relevant anyway. So we, made an agreement. Now we get one sample a quarter. And if they needed more than that or wanted more, I have a fee that they would pay. So that's exactly not, you just got to have the conversation, and not everybody would be the same.
I'm sure there's people that abuse that. Not that those people were, but there's people that...
and there's people that don't take advantage. So that's what I mean. I think that's the future, is we unbundle and we design a program that's transparent.
When there is that consolidation or whatever it is, there's always kind of a diminishing amount of people that they have. But when you mentioned about monitoring, it sounds like you're all investing in a lot of technology, which, again, walking through the scenario, if a shop owner has a question, they've got to call somebody and get them on the phone, and maybe they have to fly out or whatever they have to do. But that seems to be a real jewel that, you might be able to kind of look at their system remotely and give them an answer, really speed up the solution much faster, I would assume, with that, right?
Well, I think it's all about speed and accuracy to improve their business. So, they are going to have to shift where they may not see the same person on their line every week like they always have. But it doesn't mean, we're not there. And just think about the change of COVID, a Zoom or Teams meeting before COVID hit. I don't think any customer would have taken that meeting.
Never heard of Zoom. Never heard of it before then.
But now a lot of them are very appreciative. If it's not something you're doing on the line, it's just a quick check-in or, okay, we could have a 15-minute conversation versus me coming into the plant where it ties them up for an hour. So, you're able to be respectful and, to the point, and we just got to match, the right tool to the need at the time.
Get the answer the correct answer as quickly as possible. Kind of summarizing, what do you see the future of the supplier support look like in the industry going forward? I don't know if everybody's going to invest in the technology that you seem to be investing in, but what do you see it looking like in the future?
Well, as we're talking, it's beyond the tank, and it really is going to be a collaborative partnership. That's the shift. The customers, got to be open with, maybe not so guarded to get the most out of it. Have that transparent relationship, because at the end of the day, it's, where we can help them is the knowledge. It's not just the product. So, we want to have that deeper conversation with our customers. Where we're using technologies, even on the human, where the challenge that I have is, and all companies have this, but in what I call our traditional model, you have a salesperson that's a technical salesperson, but they're responsible for growing sales.
Right.
Well, they really have three hats. They have customer service, tech service, and sales. Mm-hmm. So what I'm trying to get the customers to understand, and I think most of them will, is actually the salesperson's less comfortable with it, is if they were going there, let's just say every week. Well, if I could just start by, we're still going to see the customer every week, but I'm going to send a junior tech service person in 1 week.
Right.
So they're still getting attention, but I'm really trying to match the resources more efficiently. And that's where using the technology, that's our long-term goal. So, we're committed to that. They're not going to see less necessarily, but it's going to be appropriate.
That would always be my concern if I was a shop owner and seeing the same guy for, 5 to 7, 10 years. Boy, if anything ever happened to him, and it goes back to the workforce development. These guys are having a hard time getting people and getting, they can get them. Do they stay? Are they invested in their so naturally they're turning to suppliers to really help them in some regard, just to troubleshoot and also to almost be eyes and ears for them.
So we are, recording more YouTube videos on the training. Some of the, I've talked about it in previous podcasts that we have that partnership with Bright Science on the surface analyzer. These are all things that you could train somebody in 15 minutes as opposed to being on the job for a month. And I think you hit it, because that turnover is really the big concern that the job shops are seeing. They don't have that talent pool.
I think some of these people, they just, it's hard to kind of keep people with that sometimes. And so, who else knows their operation more than their supplier to help them, kind of get through these things. So it is a growing concern.
Somewhat related here, there is a program by the state of South Carolina for chemical operators, not necessarily plating, but they run it out of one of the technical colleges. And it's like I don't know if it's a 6 or 9 month program. It gives you basic chemistry. They introduce you to lean manufacturing techniques, some quality, and because there's that demand, like this would be, as soon as the people get out of this, there's a job waiting for them somewhere, and it pays much better than landscaping. And yeah, it's a pretty good. I love that.
Listen, Scott, I appreciate the forward thinking and the great information and the great insight. Like you said, less chemistry, and that's kind of your goal there. And sounds like you guys are really trying to help out your customers and really form those partnerships. So appreciate you for joining us today.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks for listening to Seen and Solved by Hubbard-Hall. For more episodes, visit hubbardhall.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to like and subscribe, rate and review, and join us on social media. Produced by Awcast.